when nature triggered nuclear catastrophe, the Fukushima disaster. The day everything changed. March 11, 2011. At 2:46 in the afternoon, the ground beneath Honshu began to shake violently. It wasn't just another earthquake. It was one of the most powerful ever recorded. A magnitude 9 megathrust earthquake had struck off the coast of northeastern Japan. Buildings swayed, roads split. Entire cities felt the force of the planet shifting beneath them. But the real danger wasn't the shaking. It was the wall of water racing toward shore. Within minutes, a massive tsunami surged across the Pacific, towering waves crashing into coastal towns with devastating power. And along that coastline sat a nuclear power station few people outside Japan had ever heard of. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. What happened there over the next few days would trigger the worst nuclear crisis since Chernobyl disaster. This is the story of how nature and a series of deadly failures created the Fukushima nuclear disaster. The perfect storm. When the earthquake struck, the reactors at Fukushima responded exactly as they were designed to. Control rods automatically inserted into the reactor cores, shutting down the nuclear chain reaction. To the operators inside the control room, it looked like the system was working. But shutting down a nuclear reactor doesn't stop the heat immediately. Even after the reaction stops, the fuel rods remain extremely hot. They still need constant cooling to prevent them from overheating. That cooling system relies on electricity. When the earthquake hit, the plant lost its connection to the power grid. But there was a backup plan. Emergency diesel generators kicked on, supplying electricity to the pumps that circulated cooling water through the reactor cores. For a moment, everything seemed under control. Then the tsunami arrived. The waves slammed into the coastline, some reaching more than 40 feet high. The seawall protecting the plant had been designed for much smaller waves. The ocean surged straight over it. Seawater flooded the lower levels of the facility and drowned the backup diesel generators. Within minutes, the plant was in a state engineers feared most. A station blackout. No power. No cooling. Inside the reactors, temperatures began rising rapidly. Operators scrambled to respond. Without functioning pumps, the cooling systems were failing. The nuclear fuel rods were getting hotter by the minute. And as the water levels dropped, the tops of the fuel assemblies were exposed to air. That's when the situation began spiraling toward catastrophe. The meltdown and explosions. As the exposed fuel rods heated up, a dangerous chemical reaction began. The zirconium metal cladding that surrounds nuclear fuel started reacting with steam. That reaction produced hydrogen gas. Inside the containment structures, pressure continued to build. Engineers were racing against time. In a desperate move, they decided to vent radioactive steam to relieve the pressure. But hydrogen gas had already begun accumulating in the upper levels of the reactor buildings. Then came the explosions. On March 12th, a powerful blast ripped through Unit 1. The hydrogen ignited, blowing apart the outer structure of the reactor building. Television cameras captured the moment live. A massive cloud of debris and smoke erupted into the sky. A day later, it happened again. Another hydrogen explosion, this time at Unit 3. The images quickly spread across the world. For many people watching the news, it looked eerily similar to the disaster decades earlier at Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Fear began spreading far beyond Japan. Radiation leaks were confirmed. Invisible radioactive isotopes, like iodine-131 and cesium-137, were escaping into the air and drifting across the region. Authorities ordered an evacuation. At first, people within 3 kilometers were told to leave. Then 10. Eventually, the evacuation zone expanded to 20 kilometers around the plant. Entire towns were emptied almost overnight. But while thousands fled, a small group stayed behind. A team of workers and engineers who would later be called the Fukushima 50. These men knew the risks. They stayed anyway. Working in dangerous conditions, they fought to cool the reactors and prevent a complete containment failure that could have released far more radiation into the atmosphere. It was a battle against heat, pressure, and time. The aftermath and cleanup. In the days and weeks that followed, the disaster reshaped an entire region. More than 150,000 residents were forced to leave their homes. Towns that once bustled with life suddenly fell silent. Schools closed. Homes were abandoned. Nature slowly began reclaiming empty streets. The area around the plant became known as the exclusion zone. Meanwhile, engineers began one of the most complicated cleanup operations in history. The damaged reactors still contained melted nuclear fuel. Cooling them required enormous amounts of water. But that water became contaminated with radiation. Today, thousands of massive blue storage tanks sit at the site, holding treated water from the cooling process. Even after more than a decade, the work is far from finished. Decommissioning the plant is expected to take 30 to 40 years. And one controversial decision continues to spark debate around the world. Japan has begun releasing treated wastewater from the plant into the Pacific Ocean. Officials say advanced filtration systems remove most radioactive elements before the water is discharged. But critics remain skeptical. For many communities, especially fishermen, the fear of contamination still lingers. Lessons and conclusion. The Fukushima nuclear disaster forced the world to rethink nuclear safety. In the years since the accident, many nuclear plants have upgraded their defenses. Taller seawalls now protect coastal facilities. Backup generators are placed on higher ground. And emergency systems have been redesigned to survive even extreme disasters. But Fukushima left a deeper lesson. It showed how multiple failures, natural and human, can combine into a single catastrophic chain of events. The earthquake alone didn't cause the nuclear disaster. The tsunami didn't either. It was the combination of both, along with design assumptions that underestimated nature's power. Fukushima changed the global conversation about nuclear energy. Some countries shut down reactors entirely. Others doubled down on safety upgrades. And the debate continues today. Because nuclear power offers something the world desperately needs: large amounts of energy with almost no carbon emissions. But it also carries risks that can last generations. The abandoned towns around Fukushima stand as a reminder of that balance. A reminder that technology, no matter how advanced, must always respect the forces of nature. And that unforeseen can never be an excuse for unprepared. As the world searches for cleaner energy solutions, the ghosts of Fukushima remain. A warning about the power we harness and the consequences of losing control. Do you think nuclear energy is worth the risk? Or should the world move away from it completely? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories that explore the moments in history that shaped our world, don't forget to subscribe for more episodes of Today in History.